Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we have the Kyosho Mini Z 4x4. This is a 1/28th scale RC crawler or trail truck, and it is one of the smallest mini crawlers you can get on the market as far as mainstream ones go. Most other stuff tend to be more like 1/24th scale, 1/18th scale, and actually even on the same chassis, if you get the Jimny version, that is also technically 1/8 scale and 1/18th scale, just because of how small the Jimny is supposed to be in real life. So something to keep in mind. But in this Jeep version, as well as the 4Runner, the Land Rover Defender 90, they're all technically around 1/28th scale. The main thing you pay for with the Mini Z 4x4s, the main attraction to these, are actually the bodies. The body is very, very detailed. That is a hard plastic body, very nicely painted. I believe it's actually painted in the same color as the actual trucks, which is very cool. The matte roof here isn't a separate matte plastic piece that they place on. It is actually painted. As you can see, it's a little bit scratched there. It is actually painted. All the little details here aren't stickers. They're like kind of dry transfer or something on there, so no little sticker lines or anything. All these separate parts are nicely painted, and a lot of detail, like wipers, little antennas, even the door locks, door handles. The lights are actually light buckets and lenses. Even has little tiny D-rings on here. So a lot of really, really nice detail, and that is the main thing you pay for with the Mini Z 4x4s. This particular version, as you can see, is the Jeep edition. There is a newer version of the Jeep available with like a roof rack, ladder, much more aggressive tires and stuff. And I believe it's the same price. So if you want a little bit more updated one, or want one with a little bit more performance out of the box, I'll probably recommend the newer version just because it has the more aggressive tires on it. But speaking of which, these tires, they are licensed Nitto trail grappler tires. They are not the most aggressive tread, but they are soft enough so they do grip pretty well. One problem I've had with the tires though is the way it sits in the box. It tends to kind of develop a flat spot, so that might take a little bit of running in or kind of breaking in the tire. But they do kind of have a flat spot out of the box, so that's something you might want to look out for. And as far as like changing wheels and tires and stuff, I'll get into that when I talk about like mods and stuff that you can do to this truck a little bit later. But for now, you can see the body looks very, very nice. It looks very scale. My one complaint about how this sits is a lot of the Mini Z 4x4s sit a little bit tall. I would have liked it if it sat a little bit more lower like this. That would have looked a little bit more realistic, but I get it. They kind of did it for performance reasons, so you can kind of have the flex that you need and all that. So it's understandable, and that's not too hard of a fix to kind of lower it down a little bit if you're more into the scale aspect of RC. And to dig deeper into the truck, let's take the body off. And as you can see, there's no body clips or anything, which also adds to scale appearance. The body clips on the Mini Z 4x4s are at the bottom here. You undo these little wires, pull them back, and the body just kind of slips off, which is very nice. I like this a lot more than the way the RC 4-wheel drive does it with their hard bodies, where it's like screwed on or like Velcro or whatever. This, I think, is a very, very good option. You can see a pretty unique chassis, pretty standard looking metal chassis rails here with plastic bumpers front and rear. The way the bumper mounts though is kind of proprietary, and a lot of the innards of the Mini Zs are going to be a little bit proprietary, so that may turn some people off from this truck. But I can say from my experience, the stock electronics are very good despite being proprietary, so I don't really see a need to upgrade the electronics right away. So at least it does come with pretty good stuff. So you can see this is the 2-in-1 receiver ESC combo, proprietary motor leads there. It's a little Mini Z sized motor. Pretty large chassis mounted servo, which is nice. There's a little bit of bump steer, but it's not too bad. And it's a pretty beefy servo, so that's at least nice. The unfortunate thing though, it is like the rest of the electronics, it is pretty proprietary because it uses a 5-wire servo instead of a 3-wire. So again, if you want to replace it, you're going to have to do a lot of customizing and replacing a lot of stuff. Also, the way it mounts the chassis is pretty proprietary. You can see it kind of attaches on the sides here to the chassis instead of like this typical tabs. So a lot of work needs to be done on it to replace the electronics, but again, it does come with pretty good stuff. It also does feature a slipper clutch, which is nice to protect your drivetrain and stuff, but I will talk about that more later when I get into the mods. At the bottom here, pretty flat skid plate, metal links, and they're kind of adjustable, which is nice. Very skinny and small pumpkins, which is nice. A lot of mini crawlers tend to have really thick pumpkins for whatever reason, so that's very nice to see. Very skinny axles there, gives a lot of nice clearance. And then the battery it uses is also kind of different from most crawlers. It just uses these AAA batteries, 4 of them, and then you just kind of place them in there. It is forward mounted though, so the weight bias is pretty good. So that is nice to see. And then this little battery clip just kind of clips into there and holds the batteries in place. Putting the body back on is very easy. You just kind of plop it on and just click, and that is on. Now, as far as other stuff it comes with some other gears and some other like spare parts and stuff. Otherwise, it'll come with the typical Mini Z transmitter. It is pretty standard among all Mini Zs at the moment, and it's a pretty decent transmitter. It does feel a little bit light. It feels a little bit cheap. I also don't like how the foam grip here doesn't go all the way back, so as you're using it, kind of tends to like slide back, which is a little bit annoying. So it's not my favorite transmitter, but it is still pretty decent for what you get out of the box, and no real complaints about it. The transmitter also uses AAA batteries, which is a little bit different as well, but that makes it a little easy if you're exclusively collecting Mini Zs. All you need is AAA batteries, and you can power up the transmitter as well as all the cars. So I assume that's the reason they did it. The other nice thing though is, as you saw earlier, this truck features the FHSS receiver in this 2-in-1 combo, and it has the white antenna. And the white antenna means you are able to use other radios. Kyosho offers one, or I have this FlySky Noble transmitter. You do have to do a little bit of a change to it. You have to get this FlySky Mini Z module that you plug in, but after you do that, you can use all of your white antennaed Mini Zs with this transmitter, so that is very nice. I opted to get this just because I think it feels a little bit nicer, as well as I have so many Mini Zs now. I have so many of these transmitters kicking around. I just wanted one transmitter for all of my Mini Zs, so that helps with that tremendously. It is kind of expensive though, so if you just have the one car, it might not be worth getting the transmitter. But if you end up collecting a bunch of these like I do, then it might be worth it for you. So the hobby shop I bought this from recently put out a little tiny mini crawler course. So let's go take this thing there and see how it runs.
I appreciate it.
So as you saw, it is surprisingly capable. I actually really did like how it drove on that little course. The tires did struggle for grip a little bit at some points, but for the most part, especially for just like out of the box RTR tires, I think they did pretty well. And as you saw in the video, I do have LED lights in mine. It is the Kyosho Mini Z light set. Here it is. For those of you that are looking for it. But the drag brake and the overall performance of the truck, as you saw, is pretty good. One thing I did kind of run into though is the slipper clutch is a little bit weak. So especially the more I ran it, the more slipper clutch started to slip. So what I ended up doing is I ended up just super gluing the pads and the slipper clutch assembly together. So it'll just become basically a solid spool. And it seems like a lot of Mini Z 4x4 owners will end up doing that because the slipper clutch is a little bit loose and it doesn't seem like there's any good way to tighten it up. So that's what I ended up doing. Just be a little bit more careful driving it that way, just because you don't have a slipper clutch to save your driveline anymore. But I think it's worth it for the overall performance of the truck. Other mods like the wheels and tires, as you saw, like the typical wheels and typical 1/24 scale wheels and tires are a little bit large compared to the Mini Z wheels and tires. So that might make it look a little bit funny. Also, typically the mini crawlers use these little tiny hexes, whereas the Mini Z you can see uses a little tiny screw to hold the wheel on. And the inside is this proprietary tri-spoke design. So you are going to need to get an adapter for that if you want to use the regular mini crawler tires. So just something to keep in mind. And then once you do that, the offset is going to be very, very aggressive. So that might kind of ruin the look that you want from the truck. So those are also some things you have to keep in mind. So to do some more size comparisons, here we have a regular on-road Mini Z. This is a MA020, which is the all-wheel drive. And it looks very, very tall, but the body itself, I think, is pretty scale with the rest of the Mini Z line, or most of them. Which is why I opted to get the Jeep this time and not the Jimny, just because it'll be a little bit more in scale with the rest of my Mini Zs. Let's see. There. Another little size comparison. And then the typical 1/24 scale crawlers like the SCX 24 or like the Element Enduro 24 like I have. You can see the 24 scales are obviously a little bit bigger, both in body and kind of chassis size. Wheels and tires are also much larger on the 24 scale as well. So you can see there. Another little size comparison. And then a new car on the market is the Traxxas TRX4M. And being 1/18 scale, this is obviously going to be much, much larger than the Kyosho. Just not even a real comparison, honestly. And then finally, just sitting next to a typical 1/10 scale RC crawler. You can see it's much smaller. So as far as overall value goes, I think it really depends on what you're looking for in a mini crawler. If you're really looking for that very highly detailed scale appearance, it's going to be a pretty good option for you. But if you're someone that wants to get a mini crawler to take to like competitions or something, this is probably not going to be it. It's just too proprietary for upgrades. It's also a little bit expensive, costing around $280 to $200, and $180 or $200, excuse me, depending on where you get it and depending on whether it's on sale or not. So those are some things you gotta kind of keep in mind. Something like the SCX24, obviously, a lot of part support for that, a lot of upgrades for that, and also much more, much less expensive than the Kyosho. If you get like the deadbolt version, I think you can get those for like $120. Or even these Enduro 24s now have decent aftermarket support at this point, and also are like $90. So for pure performance wise, it might not be worth it, but if you're someone that really likes the look of Kyosho Mini Zs, or you're someone that already collects Kyosho Mini Zs, it might be something that's worth it for you. So hope that was very informative and entertaining for you guys. And as always, have a great day and have fun with RC.